Serie A fans, benvenuti. This is the Serie A podcast at Total Football Analysis. I am Daniele Proch, and as always, I am joined by Chris Mumford. You guys know him. He's the host of the EPL show, and he's a professor of innovation at the University of Chapel Hill in North Carolina. Chris, are you getting ready for the new semester at UNC?
I am. In fact, students are probably moving in now and over the weekend, and they've still hoping to get face-to-face classes in on February 8th, but we are right in the middle of the pandemic. So time will tell on that. And in fact, there are soccer showcases that are still going, college showcases down in the southern states where regulations are a little looser. So, it's a strange time right now, but I'm hopeful because the vaccines aren't too far away. I actually just signed up to get on the list. So things are happening. Let's hope that they happen faster rather than slower.
And
How are you doing?
Yeah, you also have one or two books that you're about to publish. I know they're not critiques of Donnarumma's goalkeeping skills. So I wonder, what are they all about?
Well, I just submitted a first draft to Columbia Business School Press on sports entrepreneurship. So I focus on areas where the highest growth is happening: analytics, esports, sports betting, fitness, fan engagement, and then youth sports. The COVID pandemic has really accelerated and destroyed some of the trends in those areas. So I break that down. And the second book I'm working on is actually a soccer parent's handbook because, the game's changed so much even the last few years. And, as a player, coach, and parent, I share what some of my perspectives are along with a very prominent youth soccer coach, Scott Martin.
Yeah, I really look forward to getting my hands on those books. For today, Chris, let's begin by talking about Roma Inter, the game of the weekend. The score was 2-2. Chris, I couldn't catch the game live because I myself was traveling for an away game. But I know you, Chris, couldn't unglue your eyes from the television screen during that game. Do you want to start off by breaking down maybe the key moments or key facts about this game?
Well, it was one of those games that could have been awesome or really average, and it ended up being awesome. And that really excited me. And I'm going to tell you why. There were 30 shots taken in that game. 13 shots were on goal. Expected goals was 2 for Inter and 1.88 for Roma. So guess what? The final score was 2-2. In terms of playing styles, Roma really went at it in a big way. They're very aggressive, possession, positive football, while as yet, Inter sat in on their signature 3-5-2 and looked for the counter and ended up having some success with a set piece. And it was just one of those games where the pace of play was just beautiful. The touches, the second goal of Inter, it was a true team goal. 6 or 7 players must have touched that ball before it went more or less from end to end. And that's kind of why you watch football, is just to watch the beauty. What was your take on how the goals evolved?
Yeah, I would like to break down each of the 4 goals that were scored in this game because they're all particular in their own way. So let's begin with the 1-0 goal by Lorenzo Pellegrini. We have Veretout that wins a ball back and quickly starts the transition to Roma's offensive third. He finds Dzeko, who in turn finds Mkhitaryan. Now, Mkhitaryan does something simple yet fundamental. He sets up Pellegrini with a one touch for a shot from outside the box. Now Pellegrini hits the ball perfectly with a strike across his body for a 1-0 goal. And that really, it made me happy to see Pellegrini back in form. The equalizer for Inter was a goal by Skriniar from a corner kick. And here, I really don't know what happened with Roma's zonal marking. It simply didn't work because Skriniar jumps almost without a run up. So you gotta mark that if you're marking in a zonal style of defense. Now, Chris, the Kimi goal speaks for itself, right? He moves the ball from the right foot to the left foot and strikes the ball. And then the ball does something that is always wonderful to see in football, which is the ball hits the crossbar first, hits the post after, and then goes in. And it's just magnificent to see. Now the equalizer coming 3 minutes before stoppage time. It's a header by Mancini, but let's see how the goal was set up, right? So it starts from a corner kick for Roma, and I'm not sure why. And the corner kick was kicked short. I'm not sure why Inter sends out only one man to defend two guys from Roma, precisely Villar and Pellegrini. So you have now Brozovic engaging in a 1 versus 2, and it's hard for a lone man to defend both guys. So it's obviously the cross happens and Villar can ping a nice ball inside of the box. Mancini is physically strong to take position and deflect the ball with his head. Chris, the performance of Roma's goalkeeper was key in this game. Would you agree to maintain first, Roma at touching distance from Inter, and then overall to just allow Roma to walk away with a draw?
I think so. I mean, I think that it's those situations where that's why people between the sticks need to get paid more money, in my opinion. I thought it was such a beautiful story of 90 some odd minutes. And, I feel that Roma at number 3 and Inter at number 2, it's exactly the way you want a game to be. And I just think that there were some individual moments. We've talked about Pellegrini and Mkhitaryan being the leaders of the engine room of that team. That ended up proving to be the case against a very, very difficult side. The Hakimi finish, again, there were 5 or 6 players that needed to work together to get the ball to him. Lukaku made that run in the middle to create a little extra space, maybe give Hakimi an extra yard so he can take that shot from the right side there. So it's just all the parts of a good game were captured in that. And I'm hoping that if everything goes right, I'll see 2 or 3 more matches like that during the rest of the season.
Chris, very quickly, you mentioned Pellegrini and Mkhitaryan. They're both running out of contract soon. Mkhitaryan at the end of this season and Pellegrini at the end of next season. And Pellegrini is older. He's over 30-year-old player. Mkhitaryan is older, while Pellegrini is obviously younger. But like you said, they're doing extremely well for their side. So I see the freaking group, renew the contracts of these players. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of negotiation for the figures, but they're just proven fundamental for Fonseca's side. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is this: Mkhitaryan at 31. I still think he's got a couple more years in him. Of course, you have to take your risks at players over 30. Pellegrini's 24, so he's probably got 2 big contracts left in him. And I'm just wondering if Roma's going to pay up. And it's going to be tough in this environment. But you just wonder if someone in the Premier League or elsewhere, or of course you always have to worry about Juve lurking.
To attract them.
That's exactly right. And so Juve doesn't just beat teams; they buy the talent of the teams that they're beating. So we'll kind of keep our fingers crossed, because I really like what Roma is putting together. If you remember in the beginning of the season, we wondered if they were the real deal or not. And they do have several hard games that are coming up, and we're going to get a sense on, are they the real deal by probably the end of February.
They seem to be the real deal, Chris, because they're now third with 34 points, 3 points from Inter, who are second, and 6 points from Milan, who are first. They do have a tough game coming up, the Derby della Capitale, but we'll talk about it later. First, let's focus on what happened in Turin, because Juventus beat Sassuolo 3-1, but that was an exquisite game, Chris, because of the quality that both sides showed. First off, the game started off in a pretty difficult way for Juventus, because they had injuries in the first half for McKennie and for Dybala. what happened is Kulusevski came in and he absolutely changed the game with his movements, with his left foot, with his cutting. Juventus then was able to play with one man up due to Obiang red card in the first half. Danilo hit, I don't know, Chris, if you caught it, but Danilo had a fantastic strike to put Juventus ahead of Sassuolo. What I really like about Sassuolo is that despite playing with one man down at Turin, so playing away, they kept continuing playing their brand of football. That's a trend, a pattern we've mentioned before, and they were able to equalize with a pass from Traore. He found the feet of De Frel. De Frel was in between the two center backs of Juventus, Bonucci and Demiral. The first touch was amazing. Just he set himself up for the shot and beat Chesney. The Juventus went on to winning the game with Ramsey and Cristiano Ronaldo. But what are your takes on the game, Chris? Do you have any key stats that you would like to mention?
Well, it was another fun game to watch. I mean, there were 33 shots total. Juve had 9 on target. Unsurprisingly, Sassuolo had 2. And it was one of those instances where Juve actually had most of possession, but that's because when when Sassuolo went down to 10, it was very, very difficult to do that. So I admire that Sassuolo was able to gut it out as much as it did. As a fan, I'm very disappointed about that red card because I think that could have been just another. Well, I'm not disappointed. I think it was a red card. Right. I'm just disappointed that a paid professional soccer player is going to slide in studs up like that. It's just, you put your team at such a ginormous disadvantage. And Sassuolo, we talked about last week, what a great job they were doing. And so I just feel like they shot themselves in the foot a little bit. And Juve, to their credit, they took care of business. They had a bumpy beginning, and they're kind of crawling their way back up to almost like the sense of inevitability, assuming that the Milan teams can keep pace. Inter really could have used those 2 extra points against Roma, but didn't happen. So Juve's doing exactly what it's doing. Sassuolo, let's hope that they keep the spirit alive and keep going. But it was a very entertaining match. Though watching someone with 11 versus 10 does take some drama out. I just appreciate the bravery of Sassuolo.
Let's put the spotlight on Sassuolo's midfielder Manuel Locatelli, because Man City reportedly offered £30 million to sign him. Manuel Locatelli is 22 years old. He was recently called up by Roberto Mancini in the Italy national team, and his passing range is great. His vision too. What I especially appreciate about his playing style is how he always first looks at the teammate that is in front of him, not on his side. So the first thought that he has when receiving the ball is, okay, now I'm gonna go forward. I'm gonna break lines with a nice pass forward, not sideways, which is something that I would argue many midfielders like to do, just because when pressure is on, especially, it's maybe a stiffer way to play. But Chris, I wanted to get your take on how do you see him fit Pep's midfield, or would you say that a midfielder can be the solution to Man City's problems?
Well, so I think this is a really savvy long-term play. Locatelli is 22, and my sense is that they're going to bring him in as backup for Fernandinho, who's in his mid-30s right now. And Fernandinho is top of class, right? Just outstanding. But he's been able to step in as the center back when needed. And I think what Man City's thinking is that Locatelli has a lot of the same characteristics that Fernandinho has, except that he's 13 years younger. He's only 22 years old. And he's just, he is in the top 30 in terms of successful defensive actions per 90 minutes in Serie A. What makes him really special is his long passing ability. I've been on the in the matches I have seen him play, just the weight that he puts on some of these passes, it's really hard to teach that. And he knows how to do it. So I just think this is a really wise move. If Man City can pull it off, I think they can get it back up to Fernandinho fairly inexpensively, in light of the fact that we're in COVID.
Yeah, Chris, and on Wednesday evening, I was looking at the news, and there was quite an interesting story that popped up on my feed because Bloomberg reported that Amazon is going to bid for Serie A television rights to have Serie A games streamed on their Prime Video platform. So the offer is reportedly $1.4 billion for each of the next 3 seasons. And Gazzetta dello Sport today matched the story, adding how this will be an offer that is $214 million higher than what current TV rights holder Sky and DAZN are guaranteeing in these 3 years. I don't want to draw any conclusions because this is clearly a deal in its early stages. But what can we say about Serie A, about Italian soccer as a whole, looking for external help? Maybe, Chris.
Well, I think you have to kind of look at the big picture. There is an absolute war going on with the streaming services: Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, Disney, Apple TV, and as part of Disney is ESPN. So right now, the real trick is Amazon needs content, and comparatively speaking, and making movies is pretty expensive compared to live TV. So Amazon got a little bit of taste with the Premier League, and now they are looking to see with Serie A, which gets decent love on ESPN, but still isn't the showcase. And I think this is Amazon's move to get into football in a big way, and really bring Serie A to the world and the US in particular. And I really welcome it because I think Serie A deserves more love. I think it's an underappreciated asset, certainly in the US. And I think the storylines and though the parity hasn't existed for the last 9 years, I just see that some parity coming together in the next 2 to 3 years. And there's just some really, really good football be playing in Serie A, and Amazon wants a piece of that.
Yeah, and like you said, Serie A has attracted players like Cristiano Ronaldo, like Romelu Lukaku, like Christian Eriksen, Zlatan Ibrahimovic came back. So definitely the interest is growing from a global audience. And yeah, Serie A maybe is trying to, capitalize on that, to take advantage of it. And we know that they've created a new media company, and they've agreed to sell 10% of their broadcasting rights to a consortium of companies, of foreign companies. So that's another move in that direction. And so we'll see what happens with Amazon bid. Apparently, there's going to be more information on January 26th, but we'll keep an eye on it. Chris, for now, let's focus on what's happening this weekend, because we have 2 derbies, okay? We have the Derby della Capitale, which means Derby of the capital, between Lazio and Roma. Chris, historically, this is one of the hottest derby in terms of temperament. Opta Sports last year reported that it's the derby with more red cards than any other derbies in Europe. And I can attest to that because just by watching games, you can tell how things get personal for players on the pitch. What do you expect in these games besides perhaps a lot of aggressiveness and a lot of competition?
Well, the playing styles, we know how Roma wants to play, which is pretty positive. And quite honestly, Lazio likes to do the same thing too, though maybe not as aggressive. I think this game is largely going to be won or lost in the midfield. And I am hopeful that it's a high-scoring game. I could easily see it being a 3-1 Roma game or a 1-1 draw, probably equal probability. Um, just because, as you know, sometimes these grand matches, these derbies, are a little anticlimactic. Um, so I want Lazio to be successful, but I feel like they're missing a gear this year.
Mhm.
You know, we saw that for large parts pre-COVID last year, but I just feel like they haven't really kind of gotten back to that point yet. And I think it might be that the roster is a year older. I say that, and Mkhitaryan's 31 years old, so you shouldn't buy into everything. What's your take on how that game's going to unfold?
Yeah, I was gonna say that we talked before, even at the beginning of the season, of how Lazio really haven't added much to their roster, and that can kill them in the long run because they're playing Champions League. Obviously, they're doing fine because they went to the round of 16 of Champions League, but they definitely dropped points in Serie A. I mean, right now they sit eighth in the standings with 28 points. But Roma is definitely approaching this game in better form, right? They just tied Inter and they're third. The lineup should be the two teams should line up both with a three-man defensive line. The matchups on the wing should be Lazzari and Karsdorp, and Maruzic and Spinazzola. On top for Lazio should be Immobile and Caicedo, and then on top for Roma there should be Pellegrini, Mkhitaryan, and Dzeko. I think you're right. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I do see a lot of goals being scored just because it's it's the nature of these two teams. Um, but Chris, that's not the only derby of this weekend. So get ready to sit on the couch and spend your weekend watching Serie A because we have the Derby d'Italia, which means Derby of Italy, between Juventus and Inter. Um, Inter will play at home on Sunday night here in Italy, on Sunday afternoon in the US. Chris, just what are if you were to give a couple of thoughts on this game, what would you say? Which side do you see approaching the game in better shape?
Well, this is a tricky one because I feel like Juve, I'm not exactly sure which version of Juve we're going to get this weekend. One that seemed to be a little lacking focus. There's some real, obviously, standout performances that I think have helped Juve this year. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, there's some injuries that we have to be concerned about. Inter, on the other hand, they're going to sit back with their 3-5-2. They're going to let Juve bring it. Um, you know, I, I'm not sure that Juve's team has really solidified Pirlo's um, philosophy in there because we've seen uh, maybe 20 or 30 minutes of a time of that.
Uh-huh.
This would be a great time for the players to really express that. But this game, I probably see I see a 2-1 Juve win on this one. To
Oh.
be honest with you, as you know, I'm a huge fan of Lukaku and the boys in blue and black, but I just feel like they're probably missing another piece to be able to compete against just the flat out talent that Juve has. Is just, but they might get lucky. That's why you got to play the game. What's your take?
And let's not forget that both teams they played in overtime in the Coppa Italia in the League Cup
Yeah, yeah.
during midweek games, so they're probably gonna be a little tired. But isn't fatigue the one of the main trends of this season, where the schedule is so thick? By the way, Chris, I I threw out some Italian Derby d'Italia. I didn't explain what that means. It's just a term that was used to describe the rivalry between Inter and Juventus because they used to be the only two clubs to not have been in Serie B, right? Um, and also, it's the name comes from the importance of the two clubs and the two families, Moratti and Agnelli used to have, and obviously Agnelli is still the owner of Juventus on Italian soccer. We know that Calciopoli happened in 2006, and then Juventus was relegated to Serie B, but And Inter, Chris, you're a fan of Inter, is remains the only club to not have been relegated to Serie B. How does that sound?
Mhm.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. I am, I hope that they're able to win the Scudetto soon. I just don't know if that's going to happen this year.
They will try to break Juventus's defense with. It looks like there's going to be Lukaku and Lautaro on top, with Young and Hakimi on the wings, and Juventus will respond with McKennie if he's fit. In the middle with Bentancur, Ramsey, and on top there should be Morata and Ronaldo. You know who I liked? Who I there's a player that I think is really standing out in this past games, and that's Federico Chiesa. Right? Maybe he struggled a little bit at the beginning, coming from Fiorentina. Maybe he had to get used to the new rhythm of Juventus, but right now he's killing it. He did greatly against Milan and San Siro. He did well in the past game as well, and that's Chris. We're talking about another Italian player. We just talked about Locatelli. We're talking about Chiesa. There's Euros 2021 coming up. Um, I don't know. This Italian team is starting to look young, fresh, and talented. Um, we'll talk more as we approach the summer, but would you agree that there is a rhythm? There is a trend of Italian players, coming up and really taking over in the respective sides.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. And fortunately for AC Milan, you've got some real young standout players there. I mean, I think they could make a good showing in Euro 2021. I think they're probably a bit young, could be more like 2022 or 2023, depending on how they end up calling it, or or beyond. I don't see that happening this year with heavyweights, France, England, uh, Denmark. I'm sorry, Holland. There's some. They got some pretty
Big
big
dogs.
mountains to climb. But that being said, I think I'm hoping that the Milanese fans, like the rest of Italy, are learning patience, right? That you can't have overnight success. And I do think you're right. I think from a call it 19 to 22 or 23 years old, I think Italia has as good of squads as anybody out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see. It's obviously early to talk about Euros, and we'll discuss more as we approach December. But Chris, is there any other game that you're looking forward to watching this week, besides the two ones that we just mentioned?
Well, I think those are the two that are going to grab my attention the most. I mean, I don't want to be greedy at this point, right? I mean, it's those are the two that I've got circled front and center. Always pay attention to what Atalanta is up to. Milan's playing against Calgary, so quite honestly, I'm going to focus on those two derbies.
Yeah, I think that Monday night is great to just focus on the Cagliari Milan matchup, because if Inter gets away with a win against Juventus, that's some pressure for Milan to win away against a team that is not really doing too well. Cagliari, right? They've lost a few of the last games, so that's going to be interesting. And now I'm also keeping an eye on even more on Atalanta, because yes, they don't have Papu Gomez anymore. Their star player, their fantasista, their number 10, but they have a uh, regenerized Josef Ilicic. His left foot is just one of the most educated left feet in left foot in the league. And yeah, that's it. I think I agree with you. Definitely Lazio Roma and the Derby d'Italia. So Chris, thank you so much for this. Well, I'll see you in a week. Talking about culture. What you got going on this weekend besides watching
Um,
games?
Watching games, we're having a kind of a warm spell here, so we'll spend some time outdoors. Desperate to play pickup, but my strained MCL is telling me wait a little longer. So, but no complaints on the mend. So look forward to overeating and maybe drinking just a bit too much this weekend during the games.
And you continue to develop your Lukaku skills when you feel better with your knee, right?
That's exactly right.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Saria fans, we'll see you guys next week. Ciao.